Hello and welcome to Pup Reviews, home of the two cutest little critics in existence. And today we're covering what is easily one of my favorite animes of all time, The 12 Kingdoms. I can understand why it might not be some people's cup of tea, but I'm going to make a case for it anyway. Now, if your problem is anime, I have two questions for you. 1, do you like art? 2, do you like interesting stories? If you answered yes to both of those, you like anime. You just haven't found the right one. Feel free to leave the type of story you like in the comments, and I will personally make you a list. I wish I had the savvy to base it on your favorite art style, but I'm not that good. Why do I love this anime so much, however, is a different question. For those of you who've given it a shot, it's a fair question to ask. I personally love that there's no fan service. The messaging and the themes in the story lift you up. It's one of those stories where if ever I feel sorry for myself, I change my mind in a heartbeat. It's one of those stories that gives you courage and reinvigorates your sense of strategy. The world is rich and wildly imaginative. I call it female King Arthur from the East. Then there's the art. Not everyone gets it, but they literally mix an already lovely 2D style with moving paintings. Having a living, breathing painting from an old style in Japanese art sitting in front of you is breathtaking. And I can't get enough of it. Plus, the colors are quite rich. I'm not sure what else it is, but there's something about this story that keeps me coming back to it despite ridiculous amounts of flaws. Honestly, the fact that it does get past all of those may be the reason it got pushed over the top for me. So what are the flaws? Well, there are a few voice acting issues in the dub, obviously. 1 or 2 in the sub, but they go away pretty quickly and I'm not too worried about it. Which brings the two main flaws. Storytelling issues. Now, I don't know about the novels. They were too expensive to buy, even though I would love to do a comparison. But it is a rich world and highly engaging. It's just, in the anime, you have to pen and paper it. There's so much information just thrown at you all at once, and while an immersive world can be good, you have to learn a step at a time, and they didn't give you a lot of that. It is worth it, though. We're talking about a world that feels like Tolkien could have written it. Plus side, you will enjoy the recap episodes. I found them highly useful because they helped me catch up. And then there's the reason this video exists. From what I can tell online, they rearranged a few things and added some characters. In the process, they massively wrecked what could have been a great opening. Unfortunately, garbage openings tend to lead to lower viewership, which is probably why this anime is not super popular. Still, you need the opening to understand several things at the end. You can do one of two things to combat this. You can either grit your teeth and bear the first 5 episodes and hope you can keep up enough to survive that particular drama, or you can watch this video of my made-up backstories that actually fix half the problems of what you're about to watch. I recommend the latter. I'll be doing this in order of who got the least from the actual story. Let's start with Asano. This is a character that was essentially shoehorned in, and he wasn't in the book at all. He'll need the most extensive rewrite, obviously. To be honest, they didn't give him much in the anime, and while I do kind of like him, all 3 characters have a similar expression of their low point, and that doesn't work without any kind of a real backstory. It just feels redundant. It's better there's a reason, and if you're going to listen to 3 teenagers whine, you should at least care about them first. So here's how I see Asano. Asano's father went through a difficult time in college. He began suffering from paranoid delusions. His love of science fiction seemed to be making it worse. So he tried to distract himself by focusing on something real, refurbishing old weapons. He was quite good at it. At the time, he was already dating Asano's mother, and when he was at his worst, she forced him out of traffic just in time as he had run in to chase a man across the street. The man he was chasing wasn't someone he actually knew. To be blunt, he thought he was a dark time traveler after his life. Asano's mother got Asano's father help and treatment, and they were married a few years later. For some reason, Asano's father placed the blame on everything that could take you out of the real world, becoming extremely strict about the household being fiction-free. But Asano loved fantasy and could never understand his father's anger whenever he used his imagination or wanted to play, watch, or read a popular work. Otherwise, the family was quite happy, and they regularly emphasized the positive and being there to help when someone is in trouble. He became friends with a girl his age named Yoko Nakajima. They had bonded over how strict their families could be, And while she certainly took an interest in him, he was reticent as she grew increasingly timid and adopted the regimental nature of their parents in public. Image was everything to her, and he didn't want that. He would play along a bit and act cool, but Asano wanted freedom, and he wouldn't stick around when things became too pressured. Then, the summer before high school, he was swimming and noticed a gloomy girl, reading by herself in a shaded corner. A group of girls had gone up to make fun of her as he was on approach, and he stepped in. One went home crying after what he said. The girl was mildly impressed. She was reading a fantasy novel, and they started dating that day. She opened up a world he had longed for. VR games, novels, manga, and a feeling like they could fight the world together. Asano loved his family, but he'd never felt freer than he had that summer. While his family never knew the details of their time together, they were proud of their son because of what he did talk about. He said she needed away from her family, that she never felt safe at home, and their time at the supposed library or zoo made her feel safe. Sugimoto. In the novel, she was even more ostracized than in the anime, and mainly served as a plot device to show Yoko's lack of resistance to peer pressure. Fearing disapproval, Yoko often ignored her during this harassment. She did have the greatest criticism toward her in a vision, which also served to fuel Yoko's emotional state while in the other world. However, upgrading Sugimoto in this way was actually interesting. It's just they didn't give you enough of her backstory to care about her until, frankly, it was a little too late. And I will be rectifying that. Sugimoto had a tragic background. She had one sister and one brother, and was the middle child. Her father died under mysterious circumstances when she was 7. She had always suspected her narcissistic mother, who went through a string of wealthy potentials before settling on a husband or two by the time she was in high school. Sugimoto was never obedient enough, fashionable enough, and always reading something, and not even useful things in her mother's opinion. Her elder brother was drilled into a career path and had little time or interest in her fairy stories. Her sister mostly made fun of her and sucked up to the mother and revolving father figures every chance she could. Sugimoto became increasingly depressed. No one understood her, and her social skills were too poor to even try in a group that may accept her. Her focus on death since her father's passing did not help. She liked stories where the hero killed the villains and often imagined it was herself taking out her mother. This tended to scare people. She wanted out, and fantasy was her escape. You could say it was the only thing she had. A classmate of Yoko since middle school, they first talked while performing cleaning duties together. Yoko was the first one who didn't judge her for her appearance, her glower, her interest in dark fantasies. They didn't seem to have much in common, but for the first time she thought she had found a friend. It was short-lived. Every time the other girls would harass her, Yoko just sat by or quietly walked out. Once in the last year, she heard someone ask why she would hang out with that weird girl. Yoko said, just to be nice. It doesn't mean anything, and smiled as she was praised for her generosity and tolerance. That summer, as she was seething with rage over having such a cowardly, self-serving non-friend, she was fantasizing about defeating Yoko in battle and everyone praising her instead, when a boy interrupted her. He seemed nice, but her mother did too. So did Yoko. Everyone seems to be whatever they want. But a group of girls interrupted, and when this boy told the lead girl flirting with him and trashing her to see a music specialist to fix the pitch in her laugh before she breaks some glass, Sugimoto reconsidered. She sucked him deep into her world, and they shared complaints about parental understanding. He would try to help her think of how she could fit in this world, but she was too busy fitting him into better ones to take that seriously. Then high school. Asano would be there. As would Little Miss Perfect Yoko. Yoko Nakajima. This is the only character in the anime that actually has the role she did in the books. She has some flashbacks as the show goes on, so I will be avoiding those parts of her backstory. This limits options, but I think I came up with something that could work. Rules. Yoko was born into a world that never felt like home. She was bright, independent, creative, athletic, and to her parents, highly improper. They kept specific company with strict gender roles and bland societal standards that many girls her age were no longer bound by. Such girls would not be permitted friends long if brought home either. There was no air and no pleasure but one: praise. The first time she was praised by an adult was exhilarating. And with her father's temper, her mother's disappointed sighs being the alternative, opinions of those in power became precious. Soon she learned to wear a mask, ignore her impulses, sacrifice herself, even others, because in her mind, as long as she was precisely what others asked her to be, she could be loved. She wasn't alone. But deep down, an ever-increasing hollow was carving out her insides as she began to fear that if she felt so different from everyone she cared about, if her thoughts, feelings, and attempted actions upset them so much, then perhaps underneath it all, she must have been some kind of monster. So she tried all the harder to be proper. She was glad to have Asano, though. His family lived down the street and were just respectable enough to be permitted. He tried so hard to help her feel free, to not worry so much, but he didn't understand. She couldn't tell him. There was something wrong with her. School only made it worse. She worked hard and the teachers liked her, but her friendships there never seemed strong. So she fell over herself to make them like her too. Sugimoto she met in middle school. Yoko had gotten so afraid by then that when she met her, she thought, is this me on the inside? Maybe I can help her. So she listened and tried not to judge, but it couldn't be helped. The other girls hated Sugimoto, and she couldn't afford to be too close. But she occasionally tried to make her smile, give her some advice, or listen. But no matter how much it hurt to watch her suffer, what good would it do to suffer with her? Wouldn't she just become her? What would her parents say? The summer before high school, Asano seemed absent a lot, but managed to see her occasionally. He said he was busy, but never specified. When he heard about Sugimoto, though, he told her to work harder. That got her thinking, and she would give it a try. But she had other problems to worry about that summer. That's when the dreams started. Water, a man hopping like a white froggish monkey, taunting her. Everything she feared, that she wouldn't say out loud, that she thought everyone was really thinking about her, came from that frightful man. Worse, she was seeing visions. Sometimes she saw impossible things, creatures, land she never knew. Other times she saw Sugimoto. Something about her was so frightening. But they were just dreams, right? The first time she woke from one, she wasn't sure she had woken up. Looking in the mirror, her hair had turned crimson red. Her parents lost all control. She was accused of dyeing it and becoming some wild girl who would bring shame on the whole family line. She swore on her life that she never did such a thing. On her knees in tears as her father coldly stared and her mother, beginning to believe her, suggested a salon to dye it the proper color. Yoko agreed and everyone calmed down. Soon, Yoko found she had to make regular appointments to fix the mysterious problem. And the dreams would not stop. What was wrong with her? No, nothing is wrong. Nothing can ever be wrong. Now, if I did my job, you actually care about these characters, because you know who they are. And believe you me, even if I made up these backstories to a degree, they fit with who they are. If you just picture those people acting the way these people are about to act, I think you may enjoy the first 5 episodes. I think it will make more sense. Join me for the next 5 episodes where I attempt to help you catch up and understand the lore a little better.